Hello everyone, welcome back. We are at the airport once again. I'm doing a little bit more work to this Cessna 172. Today I'm going to try to figure out the starter solenoid wiring and the windshield. So stick around and I'll get into it. So first things first, we have to understand how a solenoid works. And essentially what a solenoid is a giant coil or electromagnet which draws down a larger set of contacts. So you have a jumper wire going from the positive side of the battery to that coil, and then you have a ground terminal off of that coil which goes to your ignition switch. When you actually turn your ignition switch, you close that circuit for the coil, which creates a magnetic effect that pulls down the much larger contacts inside the relay. Lots of modern cars have relays. They're just little squares that plug into the fuse box, but essentially that's what a relay is. So what I have to figure out today is the issue with the solenoid itself? Is it with the contacts or is it with this ground? For some reason, since putting it back together, this is no longer working. Probably not the starter because that's brand new at the overhaul, and more than likely not the solenoid because that was working before we took the engine apart. So I need to figure out if there is an issue with the wiring somewhere, if something got broke during disassembly, and ultimately see what's causing the problem. So I'm gonna start doing some looking. Okay, so this is where we're at. This is sort of how everything was zip tied and put in place when I started the project, and I just installed it the same way. But just now, I started looking at the wiring diagrams to figure out where things go. This wire, this thick one here, comes directly off the battery solenoid. This wire runs from here to the main bus for airframe power. This wire, according to the diagram, should not be here. That wire should be over on this solenoid. So I'm gonna start by moving that and getting it off of here and sort of simplifying this wiring. Then this wire here and this wire here go to the starter switch inside the aircraft, which is just a push button starter switch. So I'm gonna try and clean this up and get this attached to ground and see if it will work. If not, I may have to ground the case of the solenoid itself to get it to work. Right now, I'm just trying to get things going. I'm just trying to get it to where the starter will engage. Once the starter engages and I've got this wiring figured out, I'm gonna replace these terminals and put them better places and make this a lot cleaner because this wiring's pretty nasty. But first, I wanna do an ops check. I wanna get it working. Got it. So here's my advice if you're ever gonna be doing anything like this, and I know it's obvious, disconnect the battery, take the ground off. You can leave the battery in place, but take the ground off. Keep yourself safe. Don't get hit by a starter. That'd be silly. Okay, so what it actually was, and I seem to remember this from a couple years back when I worked on this airplane before it had a SkyTech starter on it. That was part of the issue. We took this starter off, we put a SkyTech starter on it, had that on it for a while, then it went and got overhauled. When they overhauled it, they put the Hartzell starter back on it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is actually a power wire, which goes to the starter button. And then this comes back from the power wire for the starter button. And the ground for that is found through the case. So this stays grounded, and all you're doing when you push the starter button is completing the circuit from the power side to the coil. So I believe, and I could be wrong, everything for this aircraft is really hard to find. I think there was a strap around the starter. There was like a grounded strap that used these little plugs right here. So I'm gonna have to do some research and see if I can find one of those, but the starter solenoid is good. I just gotta find a way to ground this case. On later model Cessnas, they put it over on the firewall, and this is actually a wire like this that runs from where it comes. But I'm gonna try to keep it obviously as close to original as possible. I don't wanna modify the design of the electrical system because that would be a violation. So that's a problem for another day, but I got it figured out. I got this working. So now we're gonna move on to getting all of these little rivets out, and that's not gonna be terribly exciting. So I'll probably put the camera down and then just show you when I'm finished. I'll see y'all in a little while. Got them all out. I know I've been saying that for like 4 videos, but whatever. I finally got them out. I've got this wiring figured out and what's wrong with this. So next time I come, I'll bring new terminals for everything so I can clean up all the wiring on that and make that nice and pretty. I got all the wiring figured out on the alternator. I got the oil pressure hooked up. The last thing we need is whatever part is missing for this. This is the oil temperature. This probe you see sticking here just sort of slides into the case, and that's not good. So I got to figure out what's missing from that ensemble? Again, it's one of those things with the 0300 that can't seem to find a manual on it, can't find a parts catalog, so it is what it is. I'll get it figured out. I've gotten everything else figured out on the airplane, but that's probably gonna do it all for this video. It's Sunday. I'm gonna go home and spend some quality time with the wife before I gotta go back to work tomorrow. So if you like the video, leave us a comment, subscribe, and as always, be easy.